Hi, this is the AI Storyteller. I'm Mark. In this edition, we are dissecting the novel The English Patient, which won the Golden Booker Prize. The Booker Prize, the most prestigious award in contemporary English language literature, selects the best work of fiction written in English from around the world every year. The Golden Booker Prize, on the other hand, was established in 2018 by the organizers to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Booker Prize. It aims to recognize the best Booker Prize-winning novel from the past half-century. This coveted accolade was claimed by the Canadian novelist Michael Ondaatje's The English Patient. Ondaatje's novel writing exhibits two distinct characteristics: a strong focus on international themes and a richly poetic language. His interest in international themes can be traced back to his upbringing. Born in 1943 in a wealthy Sri Lankan farming family with a complex heritage, Ondaatje moved around extensively with his family from a young age. He spent his teenage years in the United Kingdom and went to Canada for university when he was 19. The poetic quality of Ondaatje's language stems primarily from his identity as a poet. In his early years, Ondaatje gained recognition as a remarkable modernist poet in Canada. Starting in the 1970s, he ventured into novel writing and achieved global acclaim with The English Patient. Since its publication in 1992, The English Patient has been translated into over 269 versions in more than 30 languages worldwide. The novel's publication transcends language, ethnicity, and national boundaries, seemingly fulfilling the unfulfilled desires of its characters. In the novel, the protagonist, Almasy, once said, "All I wanted was to walk upon the earth free, untrammeled." This statement may sound enigmatic, but pay attention to it, for after a full interpretation, you will have a deeper understanding of its significance. So, what is the story of The English Patient? At the Golden Booker Prize award ceremony, Ondaatje mentioned that everything in this epic novel began with a night conversation between a burn patient and a nurse. The story is set in a villa in the hills near Florence, Italy, in 1945. The villa originally housed a field hospital, but as the front lines shifted, the hospital relocated, leaving behind the burn patient and the nurse. This burn patient has lost his memory and doesn't know who he is. Everyone assumes he is English, hence the nickname The English Patient. Later, a thumbless thief and a mysterious Indian soldier arrive at the villa, and the four of them, through a series of chance encounters, form a group known as the War Victims. So, what stories do these four individuals carry, and how has the war devastated their bodies and minds? Unlike conventional authors who narrate each character's story chronologically, Ondaatje presents fragmented clues, allowing readers to piece together the answers themselves. This narrative style is sophisticated because if you can piece together the scattered information in different chapters and solve the puzzle, you not only get a complete and compelling story but also derive immense intellectual satisfaction from the reading experience. For instance, we mentioned earlier that the story is set in 1945, a piece of time information the author does not explicitly provide at the beginning. It's only after more than 10 pages into the novel that the author casually mentions that the furniture was not damaged in the fire when the troops withdrew in April 1945. In the subsequent interpretation, I will attempt to maintain the style of the original book and gradually piece together this intricate story. At the beginning of the novel, before we even had a chance to learn the names of the English patient and the nurse, a trespasser entered the villa, a thief named Caravaggio. During the war, he had been recruited for his special skills, involved in some covert activities with ties to the intelligence agency. His arrival brought several important pieces of information. For instance, we finally learned the nurse's name. She is called Anna, a Canadian who knew Caravaggio when they were children. Furthermore, Caravaggio finds the English patient lying in the bed to be highly suspicious. He recalls a certain archaeologist who aided German spies in crossing the desert into Cairo. This individual, much like the burn patient, possessed an incredible knowledge of geography, history, and various languages. The novel unfolds gradually in this manner, growing richer with each revelation. The fragmented recollections of the burn patient, Caravaggio's somewhat allergic thoughts after administering anesthesia, starting from these faintest traces, Like drops of water soaking into paper, the entire story unfolds, becoming progressively clearer. The identity of the English patient is gradually unveiled. He is, in fact, Count Almasy, a Hungarian renowned within a small circle centered around the Royal Geographical Society in London, a significant figure in the world of desert archaeology. He and his companions embarked on a decade-long expedition in the most desolate eastern part of the Sahara Desert, and eventually discovered the legendary Zerzura Oasis. One day, their archaeology team was joined by a young Oxford-educated couple, Clifton and Catherine. Clifton had a two-seater airplane, which was the main reason they were allowed to join the small group, as having an aircraft provided the team with the opportunity to explore remote areas of the desert. It took a while, but Count Almasy eventually realized that he and Catherine had fallen in love. The author portrays their discovery of mutual affection in a deeply moving manner. At first, Almasy noticed that Catherine had an unconquerable expression, looking as though she were contemptuous, while Catherine dreamt that Almasy was harming her. Neither of them could pinpoint who had seduced whom, only recalling that they had even harbored a hint of hatred for each other initially. Later, Catherine came to borrow a book from Almasy, his ever-present copy of Histories, a great work by the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, chronicling the wars between the Persian Empire and the Greek city-states in the 6th to 5th centuries BC. In the Western world, this book is regarded as one of the earliest works of history. Almasy and Catherine met on a street in Cairo where parrots were being sold, standing amidst the birds. Catherine said, "If I gave you my life, you would throw it away, wouldn't you?" The scenes and dialogues we discussed earlier are scattered across different chapters and paragraphs, some without clear time markers, making it challenging for readers to piece together a chronological timeline. This is an advanced writing technique where the author refrains from providing prominent signposts, and the narrative perspective continuously shifts, leaving readers uncertain about the speaker. Is it the incoherent murmurs of the burned patient, Almasy, in a semi-conscious state? Is it Caravaggio's record of inquiries into Almasy's past? Or perhaps, it's the impressions accumulated over countless days by the nurse, Anna? These are vague memories and emotions suspended on a chaotic timeline, yet they are exceptionally clear, thanks to Ondaatje's genius as a poet, who paints these scenes and dialogues with simplicity and precision, making them stand out amidst the confusion. Catherine was a woman easily influenced by words, even moved by her own recitations of poetry. She found inspiration and drive from passages in the book Histories that she read aloud to herself, as well as from the sentences written by Almasy in the margins of the book's pages. Almasy, on the other hand, instinctively resisted the allure of language. It's crucial to emphasize this because throughout their emotional development, all the pivotal lines were spoken by Catherine. For instance, she boldly took the first step and said to Almasy, "I want you to take me." This simple sentence triggered a dramatic climax. Such sentences are what every writer dreams of, and in the novel, Ondaatje seems to casually sprinkle them throughout. Almasy and Catherine later decided to part ways and never see each other again. On the surface, it was because their illicit affair didn't align with their ethics, causing them constant self-blame. However, Almasy himself admitted that both of them were unburdened by ethics. The real reason for their separation was Catherine's fear of her husband. But why was she afraid? The author discreetly provides this important information to the readers once again. It turns out that Catherine's husband, Clifton, was an operative for the intelligence agency, and within that archaeology team, there had long been an undercover intelligence agent. The intelligence agency's interest in this desert expedition was entirely justified, as the world was on the brink of a global war, and that previously obscure desert was about to become a battleground for two armies. The desert geography knowledge that Almasy and his few friends were interested in had now become crucial national intelligence. The thief, Caravaggio, was also associated with the intelligence agency. He told Almasy that the intelligence agency had known about his and Catherine's secret romance all along. Finally, Catherine's husband, Clifton, discovered this affair. He couldn't bear the shock and decided to plan an accident that would end the lives of all three of them. He piloted an aircraft with Catherine on board, intending to crash into Almasy upon landing, but the plane collided with the ground prematurely. Almasy carried the barely breathing Catherine and placed her in a cave, then embarked on a desperate journey across the desert, attempting to save Catherine. However, the desert had already become a battlefield. He was first arrested by the British as a suspicious individual, then fell into the hands of the German army. In exchange for saving Catherine, he made a deal with the Germans, using his desert knowledge to secure a car and fuel from the German forces. He aided German spies in crossing the desert into Cairo, accomplishing a task that the Germans deemed impossible. True to their word, the Germans provided him with a car. Almasy drove into the desert in search of Catherine, even though more than half a year had passed, and theoretically, Catherine should have already perished. The car exploded in the desert, a result of sabotage by the British intelligence agency. They had sent Caravaggio to plant a bomb on the car, suspecting that Almasy was responsible for the murder of their agent, Clifton. Almasy managed to escape from the wreckage and made his way to the cave where he had placed the severely injured Catherine a year ago, vowing to return and save her. The story reaches this point, entering a world where reality and hallucination intertwine, almost taking on a mythical quality. Almasy seems to share a telepathic connection with the long-deceased Catherine, engaging in a mental dialogue within the cave. The tragic tale of Almasy and Catherine touches not only on love but also on the eternal war between the individual and the public. This statement is made by Nurse Anna towards the end of the novel, within a letter. It essentially conveys that every person is inevitably drawn into the war, and each one bears immense pain and failure as a result. In the main thread of the story, the love between Almasy and Catherine had to come to an end amid the war. Caravaggio, a character who provides crucial clues to the readers, was once a cheerful and amiable thief who lived life freely and delightfully but later joined the British camp during World War II as a spy. He was captured by the German intelligence agency, brutally tortured, and had 2 of his thumbs amputated. As previously mentioned, there was a mysterious Indian soldier in the villa, and in his story, we will see that besides direct physical pain, war also exposes heartbreaking racial divides. This Indian soldier is named Kip and serves as a minesweeper in the British Army, responsible for clearing landmines. Due to his talent, he was noticed by a British officer and became part of a minesweeping experimental group, specifically tasked with defusing the German landmines that had been redesigned to be more difficult to disarm. The British officer and Kip formed a father-son-like bond, but as the author, Ondaatje, mentioned in an interview, even though the officer had deep affection for Kip and took care of him, from a larger perspective, readers may not necessarily view him as a good person. This is because, despite the officer's care, he continuously put Kip in life-threatening situations. The officer died during a bomb defusing operation, and Kip's emotional connection to the British Army began to unravel. He came alone to the Italian battlefield and joined the demoning unit there. Here, he fell in love with Nurse Anna. They were a simple, well-intentioned couple, seemingly destined for a bright future. However, one day, Kip turned on the radio and heard news that shocked him. The American military had dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan. This event shattered his inner balance. He was an Indian Sikh, and his homeland was under British colonial rule. Yet, he willingly joined the British Army and engaged in the most dangerous work. The atomic bomb explosions made him realize that the work he thought was meaningful was, in reality, futile. The cause he was willing to dedicate himself to had no value. He believed he could love Anna freely, but at that moment, he suddenly realized an insurmountable gap between them, the racial divide. The impact on Kip's psyche, Caravaggio fully understood. The book says he knew the young sapper was right. They would never drop such a bomb on a white country. After realizing the racial divide, Kip could no longer continue as a British minesweeper, nor could he continue his love affair with Anna. He left the unit and Anna, riding away on a motorcycle, alone. Nurse Anna is a character who runs throughout the novel. At the beginning of the story, the author, Ondaatje, informs the readers that Anna's work in the field hospital has severely damaged her psychologically. She begins to question whether there is any true justice in the midst of war. In a personal sense, Anna withdraws from the most brutal war in human history, choosing not to follow the field hospital as it moves and instead continuing to care for the English patient in the mountain villa. It's only revealed to the readers later that Anna chose to care for a burn victim because her father was burned to death in the war. Due to the profound emotional trauma, she had retreated into a shell of herself. Caravaggio, an old friend of her father, comes to the villa, as does Sikh soldier Kip. They bring warmth to Anna's humanity, and Kip even brings her love. However, in the end, Kip chooses to leave her, and Anna is left to continue the struggle alone, becoming a part of the eternal war between the individual and the public as mentioned earlier. The fragmented narrative pieces of the English patient come together to form a story roughly as described. However, in this novel, as important as what is written is the question of how it is written. The narrative artistry, which includes the way Ondaatje constructs the story, is a key factor that sets the English patient apart among all Booker Prize-winning works. Firstly, Ondaatje weaves a broad and expansive story in the novel, with each character having a rich backstory. They are not mere props driving the plot forward but vivid individuals. However, the storytelling is not linear, and it doesn't unfold along a straightforward timeline. Instead, the novel presents fragmented scenes and dialogues happening in different times and spaces, all interwoven through continuous conversations, memories, and imaginations. These fragments are scattered throughout the novel's 10 chapters, piecing together, layering upon one another. Names mentioned in a delirious utterance might not be fully understood until dozens of pages later, and a seemingly casual remark after a night of drinking might only reveal its true significance a couple of chapters later. Reading this novel requires a slow, cautious approach, with every word carefully considered, as each word conceals the secrets of the characters' destinies. Secondly, it's a novel of complex and diverse literary styles, filled with poetry. As mentioned earlier, the novel is filled with fragments of memories and imaginative scenes, and these images and phrases shine brilliantly in Ondaatje's prose. They are lyrical, restrained, and profoundly moving. For instance, when describing Anna removing her shoes, opening her collar, and rolling up her sleeves, Ondaatje uses the phrase sweet disarray to convey the character's image. This simple yet contradictory figure of speech brings the character to life on the page. In the novel, Ondaatje embeds many passages from masterpieces, including Herodotus, Nobel laureate Kipling, and Suetonius. These references serve not only as instances where characters are reading or listening to these works but also as guiding elements in the development of the story, imbuing it with unique significance. They often play a role in the narrative structure as well. For instance, just before transitioning into a wartime narrative, the novel has the characters read a passage from the Charterhouse of Parma, using this quote as a transitional paragraph for the plot. This collage technique enriches the novel, as it feels like the author has hidden various Easter eggs throughout the story for readers to discover, providing an enjoyable reading experience if you can get them. Moreover, the most crucial point is that Ondaatje seems to be using these masterworks to suggest to readers how to understand the complex literary style of the novel. This is because the author aims to achieve a Herodotian feat in the 20th century, traveling to seldom visited places and recording great deeds and touching legends. In the novel, there's a highly significant object, a copy of Herodotus' histories that Almasy carries with him wherever he goes. He uses it not only for archaeological assistance but also as a notebook and scrapbook. The book contains various pieces of knowledge, thoughts, and comments, with the novel referring to these fragments of knowledge and commentary as lying together in the text of Herodotus. This histories almost serves as a metaphor for the novel's literary style. Ondaatje has a penchant for creating various cross-literary collages in his novels, and The English Patient is no exception. These collages aren't just surface-level quotations. They also contain a wealth of novel knowledge that readers might find unfamiliar. The author has conducted extensive research in related fields, such as the detailed descriptions of Kip disarming landmine triggers. When it comes to bomb structures and demining techniques, the author provides thorough and professional explanations. Geographical knowledge is particularly abundant in the novel, as the author combed through the archives of the Royal Geographical Society in London for this purpose. This is partly because the main character of the story, Almasy, is exceptionally knowledgeable in this area. Mention any place named to him, and he can tell you the location and various geographical features of that place. Another reason is that the concept of maps itself is an important underlying theme in the novel. As mentioned earlier in this analysis, Almasy says, "All I ever wanted was a world without maps." Throughout the novel, the word map is mentioned a total of 56 times. It serves as a constant reminder that this is a world divided by maps, and Almasy prefers to roam in places without maps, in deserts where no one dares to venture. He wants to leave his own footprints on the road and find the lost Zazura oasis. This is a metaphor for Almasy's fate. Both he and Catherine disregard social rules and stereotypes, wanting to freely carve out their life paths, and they once found that oasis, only to lose it in the end. With this, we've covered the writing characteristics of the English patient. Besides portraying the pain inflicted by war on humanity, what does Michael Ondaatje hope to convey? To understand this, we need to look back at the time when The English Patient was written. The novel was published in the early 1990s, a time when the wave of globalization was on the rise. The characters in the novel are full of ideals and passion, coming together in the boundless desert to seek the oasis in their hearts. It seemed fitting because at that moment, people were celebrating the impending globalization, excited about the common values and shared destiny that humanity had just discovered. The novel quickly became a bestseller worldwide, proving that it resonated with people around the world. In 1996, acclaimed director Anthony Minghella adapted the novel into a film that won 9 Academy Awards after its release. The film primarily focuses on the tragic love story of Almasy and Catherine, set against the backdrop of the magnificent desert, where the lovers throw themselves into a passionate romance. The film adaptation was incredibly successful, shining just as brightly as the novel and moving audiences deeply. Watching the film and then reading the novel doesn't diminish the novel's value, and reading the novel and then watching the film doesn't exhaust the emotional power of the film. In both works, words and images each have their own perfect way of conveying the story. Ondaatje once said that The English Patient had 2 unexpected successes for him. One was the successful film adaptation, and the other was in 2018 when the novel won the Golden Booker Prize. This event itself seems profound. As globalization has developed to this day, the dream of peaceful coexistence among diverse cultures in the world seems to be shrouded in a thick cloud. The once removed barriers are being picked up again, and blurred lines are being redrawn. At this moment, people revisiting this novel may find it a different experience. In the novel, as the footsteps of war approach the desert, those who wander in this borderless paradise also see shadows. Even among those who are as close as family, there are secret spies sent by different camps to the desert. What they seek in the desert is not the oasis in Almasy's heart. Individual freedom ideals are also facing challenges similar to cosmopolitanism. These barriers seem to have been raised not only in geographical terms, but also in people's hearts. Recently, on the internet, a new generation of readers criticized the moral aspects of The English Patient, viewing the romance between Almasy and Catherine as an ethical transgression. To some extent, a new trend toward conservative political correctness seems to be emerging. Almasy's desire for a world without maps may not be included in this trend. People seem to have forgotten that the ideals of the novel's characters originally sprouted in the dire circumstances of human suffering and failure. So, this concludes our analysis of The English Patient. Let's recap the key points. 1. The English Patient is set against the backdrop of World War II and centers around the identity of the English patient. It describes intertwined stories from various perspectives, including the love story between the English patient, Almasy, and a married woman, Catherine. The husband of Catherine, flying a plane, intends to die with them, but the plane crashes prematurely. The novel also features Nurse Hannah, who loses her father in the war and stubbornly cares for her last patient. Caravaggio, a thief-turned-war hero, loses both his thumbs and can only imagine himself through morphine. Kip, an Indian soldier, is tasked with disarming landmines for the British Army but discovers that he can never bridge the racial divide. 2. The author doesn't follow a linear narrative to tell this complex story. Instead, he scatters crucial dialogues and scenes throughout different chapters, interspersed with memories, reveries, and imaginations of various characters. 3. The narrative language in the novel is both poetic and precise, often bringing characters and scenes to life with just a sentence or a few words, creating a nuanced and emotional impact. 4. The novel employs Ondaatje's signature collage technique, inserting passages from famous masterpieces from different literary eras into the narrative. These passages seamlessly blend with the storytelling, adding depth and meaning. 5. The novel contains numerous accurate and novel pieces of knowledge, as the author conducted extensive research on topics such as desert geography and mine-clearing techniques. 6. The English patient embodies ideals of shared human destiny, which, while facing significant challenges in today's world of globalization, remains profoundly meaningful. This is one of the reasons the novel's text has a powerful impact on readers. Well, that concludes the content for this episode. If you enjoyed my video, please click like, subscribe to my channel, and share it with your friends. Thank you.